Elena Reed stared at the empty bed where her 8-year-old son Danny should have been sleeping. The window was open, the curtains billowing gently in the night breeze. There were no signs of forced entry, no struggle, nothing to indicate what had happened, except for a faint blue powder on the windowsill that seemed to shimmer under her flashlight. "Ma'am, we've searched the entire neighborhood," the police officer said, his expression sympathetic but resigned. "There's no trace of your son. We'll keep looking, but—" Elena knew what he wasn't saying. Children who disappeared like this were rarely found. But Danny wasn't just any child. He was her only family since her husband Tom had died in the Martian mining accident 3 years ago. She wouldn't lose Danny too. "What about the powder?" she asked, pointing to the windowsill. "Lace." Officer looked uncomfortable. Lab results came back inconclusive. They've never seen anything like it. After the police left, Elena sat on Danny's bed clutching his favorite stuffed robot. As a military engineer before settling down to raise Danny, she still had connections. One call to her old commander, Admiral Hayes, was all it took. "Elena," Hayes said, his face grave on the video call. "That powder, and we've seen it before. It's not from Earth." Elena felt her blood run cold. "What are you saying?" "There's a reason I retired you with full benefits after only 8 years of service. Your work on the quantum displacement drive was noticed by entities we've been monitoring. Entities not from our solar system." Elena clutched the robot tighter. "Are you telling me aliens took my son?" "The Arcturians. They're an advanced species, research-oriented. They've been collecting specimens, usually adults with specific knowledge or abilities. This is the first child we know of." "Why? Why Danny?" Hayes looked away. "Genetic sampling suggests they're interested in familial connections to certain neural patterns. Your neural patterns, Elena, the ones that helped you develop the QDD technologies." Elena stood, steel entering her spine. "I don't care who they are or what they want. I want my son back. Elena, these beings have technology centuries beyond ours. We've been trying to negotiate." "Trying isn't good enough," she interrupted. "What ship can I take?" Hayes looked startled. "Elena, you can't possibly—" "I finished the prototype of the enhanced QDD before I left. The one that could potentially cross interstellar distances. Where is it now?" Hayes's silence told her everything. "You have it, don't you? Military intelligence has been working on it. Is it operational?" "Theoretically," Hayes admitted, "but completely untested for human transport. It would be suicide." "Not if I'm the one piloting it," Elena said. "I designed it. I built most of it. And I'm the only one who fully understands the gravitational compensation algorithms. Even if you could reach their system, you know where they are?" Hayes nodded reluctantly. "We've tracked their movements. They have 3 star systems in a cluster about 12 light years from here. But Elena, they have defenses, ships, weapons, and—" "I have nothing left to lose," she replied, her voice hardening. "Either help me, Hayes, or I go public with everything I know about the program and the aliens. Your choice." 48 hours later, Elena stood in a restricted hangar at Lunar, Base Alpha, staring at the sleek vessel before her. The prototype QDD had been installed in an experimental long-range scout ship. It was beautiful, deadly, and completely untested. "We've loaded the ship with basic armaments," Hayes said. "But this is a reconnaissance vessel, not a warship." "I'm not planning to start a war," Elena replied, checking the power couplings on her suit. "I just want my son back." Hayes handed her a small device. "This contains everything we know about the Arcturians, including language samples our linguists have decoded." "Elena, the odds of success—" "Never tell me the odds." She cut him off, placing the device in her pocket. "Just make sure there's a spot for me and Danny when we get back." As the ship's systems came online, Elena felt a cold clarity settle over her. These aliens had no idea what they'd done. They hadn't taken a specimen. They'd taken a mother's son, and they were about to learn a fundamental truth about humanity that no amount of advanced technology could prepare them for. The quantum displacement drive hummed with a sound unlike anything constructed by human hands before. a harmonic resonance that seemed to vibrate between dimensions. Elena checked the calibrations one final time, her hands steady despite the knowledge that she was about to attempt something no human had ever survived. QDD spooling at 97%, she announced to the empty cockpit, a habit from her military days. Gravitational compensation aligned, preparing for displacement in 3, 2, 1. The universe seemed to fold around the small ship. Stars stretched into ribbons of light, then compressed into a single point of brilliant intensity before exploding outward again. Elena's body felt simultaneously crushed and expanded, her consciousness struggling to remain intact as fundamental forces warped around her. Then, suddenly, stillness. She opened her eyes to find herself exactly where she'd aimed, at the edge of the Arcturian star cluster. 3 stars orbited a common center, a red giant, a yellow main sequence star not unlike Sol, and a smaller white dwarf. According to Hayes's intelligence, the Arcturians maintained significant presence in all 3 systems. Elena's sensors detected artificial structures immediately, massive orbital platforms around each star, connected by what appeared to be energy, conduits spanning the interstellar void. The scale was overwhelming. "Secondary displacement complete," she whispered, as her ship rematerialized in the shadow of an asteroid at the edge of the red giant system. Her stealth systems engaged automatically, though she had no illusion they would hide her from Arcturian sensors for long. She activated the translation device Hayes had given her and began scanning communications frequencies. The cacophony of alien data streams was incomprehensible at first, but the translation algorithms gradually began sorting patterns, identifying command structures, finding entry points. After 6 hours of intensive work, Elena had her first breakthrough, a security protocol for a monitoring station near her position. The translation wasn't perfect, but she understood enough to create a passable counterfeit identification code. "Let's see if this works," she muttered, transmitting the code to the station. To her surprise, the response was immediate, a successful authentication and a data packet containing navigation instructions. The Arcturians weren't expecting infiltration. Why would they? They had never encountered a species with displacement technology before. Following the navigation data led her to a massive orbital structure, clearly a transport hub of some kind. Elena docked her ship at an automated bay, heart pounding as she prepared for her first face-to-face encounter with her son's abductors. The Arcturians, it turned out, were not what she had expected. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, they moved, with a fluid grace that suggested altered gravity adaptations. Their four-armed bodies were covered in something like iridescent scales, and their faces featured compound eyes that reflected light in kaleidoscopic patterns. Elena kept to shadows and maintenance corridors, her military training serving her well as she avoided detection. The translation device, now configured as a small earpiece and microphone, allowed her to understand snippets of conversation and read basic signage. After hours of careful infiltration, she accessed a central database terminal. The interface was alien, but the underlying logic of information storage wasn't so different from human systems. Elena searched for any reference to recent acquisitions, specimens, or humans. What she found chilled her blood. The Arcturians hadn't just taken Danny, they had abducted dozens of humans over the past decade. Each was categorized by genetic markers, neural patterns, and psychological profiles. Danny's file was linked directly to hers, with annotations about hereditary transmission of certain cognitive traits. They were studying how human genius passed from generation to generation. Even more disturbing, the files indicated that the specimens were being kept in a high-security research facility orbiting the yellow star, the center of the Arcturian civilization. Getting there would require traveling through heavily monitored space. As Elena contemplated her next move, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the station. A voice spoke in the Arcturian language, the translation coming through her earpiece in fragments. "Unauthorized access, security breach, human biosignature detected." They'd found her. Elena ran back toward the docking bay, but the corridors, were already filling with Arctarian security forces carrying what were unmistakably weapons. She ducked into a side passage, finding herself in what appeared to be a small hangar with several Arctarian shuttlecraft. Without hesitation, she forced open the access panel of the nearest shuttle and studied the controls. Different design, but similar principles. She could fly this. As she powered up the shuttle, the hangar doors began to close. Elena punched the unfamiliar controls, sending the shuttle scraping through the narrowing gap. Behind her, energy weapons fired, scoring hits on the shuttle's hull. But she was out, accelerating away from the station, setting course for the yellow star and the facility where her son was being held. As she pushed the alien craft to its limits, Elena couldn't help but smile grimly. The Arctarians had made a critical mistake in their studies of humanity. They'd failed to account for a mother's determination. The stolen Arctarian shuttle handled like nothing Elena had ever flown before, responsive in ways that defied Newtonian physics, yet strangely sluggish when performing simple maneuvers. By the time 3 Arctarian pursuit vessels appeared on her sensors, she'd only just begun to understand the craft's capabilities. "Come on," she muttered, pushing the shuttle into a tight spiral around a small moon. The pursuing vessels followed with effortless precision, closing the distance. Energy pulses sliced past her craft, one grazing the hull and sending systems into alarm. Elena realized she couldn't outrun or outfight them. She needed another option. She accessed the shuttle's communication array and broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Elena Reed of Earth. I mean no harm. I only want my child returned." The pursuit vessels continued their approach, weapons charged. Clearly, diplomacy wasn't going to work. Just as Elena prepared for what would likely be her final evasive maneuver, her sensors detected new energy signatures. From behind the moon emerged 5 vessels of unfamiliar design, neither human nor Arctarian. To her shock, these new arrivals positioned themselves between her shuttle and the pursuers, broadcasting in multiple frequencies including one her translator could partially decipher. "Arctarian vessels withdraw. This human is under our protection." The Arctarian ships hesitated, then slowly retreated. Elena's communication system chimed with an incoming transmission from the mysterious ships. A face appeared on her screen, humanoid, but definitely alien, with silver blue skin and eyes that seemed to contain shifting nebulae. "Elena Reed," the being said, its mouth movements not quite matching the translated words. "I am Commander Telos of the Proxima Resistance. We've been expecting you." "Expecting me?" Elena echoed in disbelief. Any mother who would cross 12 light years alone to rescue her child is someone we have been waiting for, someone who might finally help us defeat the Arctarians. Elena was escorted to a hidden base on the dark side of the moon, a sprawling complex carved into the lunar regolith and shielded from detection by technology she couldn't begin to comprehend. Inside, she discovered a coalition of species from various worlds, all victims of Arctarian collection in some form. Some were refugees, others resistance fighters, all united by their opposition to Arctarian expansion. Commander Telos explained their situation as they walked through the base. The Arctarians have been experimenting on species across this sector for centuries. Their research involves genetic manipulation, cognitive enhancement, and various forms of augmentation, all without consent. "They took my son," Elena said. "That's all I care about." "Your son is important to them," Telos replied. "Because you are important. Your work on quantum displacement technology represents an evolutionary leap they didn't predict humans would make for at least another century. It concerns them." They entered a large chamber filled with holographic displays showing Arctarian facilities across all 3 star systems. "We've identified where they're keeping the human specimens," Telos continued, gesturing to a massive orbital structure. "But it's their most heavily guarded research station. We've never been able to breach it." Elena studied the schematics carefully. "You've never had someone who designed quantum displacement technology before. What are you suggesting?" "My prototype. Ship has capabilities your resistance hasn't seen yet. With modifications, it could potentially bypass their defensive grid entirely." Telos's ethereal eyes widened. "That would change everything. Not just for your rescue mission, but for our entire resistance. For the next few days, Elena worked alongside alien engineers to integrate resistance technology with her QDD prototype. The resistance provided intelligence on Arcturian security systems, while Elena contributed her unparalleled understanding of quantum mechanics. During this time, she learned more about the resistance's struggles. Many had family members still, in Arcturian captivity. Their fight wasn't just about liberation. It was about ending the Arcturians' exploitation of intelligent species permanently. As the retrofit neared completion, Elena found herself approached by various alien leaders. They viewed her not just as a mother on a rescue mission, but as something more, a potential catalyst for change, someone whose determination and technical genius might shift the balance of power. The modified displacement drive should allow us to appear directly inside their research station's secure zone, Elena explained at the final briefing. A small team goes in, extracts the prisoners, and disappears before their systems can respond. And if we succeed, Talos added, we'll have proven the Arcturians are vulnerable. It could inspire uprisings across all three systems. Elena nodded, though her focus remained singular. Politics and revolutions meant nothing compared to holding her son again. The night before the mission, she sat alone in her quarters, looking at the only photo of Danny she had, a small digital image stored in her personal device. She touched the screen gently. "I'm coming for you," she promised, "and nothing in 3-star systems is going to stop me." The modified QDD hummed with a new resonance as Elena's ship, now integrated with resistance technology, prepared for the most precise displacement jump ever attempted. Around her in the cramped cockpit sat 3 resistance fighters: Talos, a lithe warrior named Kira from a high-gravity world, and a multi-limbed technical specialist called Nexus, whose species possessed natural abilities to interface with technology. "Displacement in 10 seconds, Elena announced, her voice steady despite the knowledge that they were attempting to materialize directly inside the most secure Arcturian facility in existence. 9, 8. Nexus extended 2 of his appendages into the ship's control surfaces, his body becoming a living conduit for the immense calculations required. Compensation algorithms holding, target coordinates locked. Elena completed the countdown and the universe folded around them. This time, the displacement felt different, more controlled, more precise. When reality reasserted itself, they found themselves in a dimly lit hangar bay deep within the orbital research station. No alarm sounded. The QDD's unique signature had bypassed the Arcturian detection grid completely. "We have 18 minutes before their system cycle identifies anomalous mass readings," Nexus chirped, his voice a series of clicks translated by their communication devices. Elena checked her weapon, an energy pistol provided by the Resistance, and activated the portable scanner keyed to human biological signatures. This way. They moved through the station like ghosts, avoiding patrols and security measures with the help of Nexus's real-time hacking of the station's systems. The architecture was distinctly alien. Corridors curved in mathematically perfect spirals. Lighting seemed to emanate from the structure itself, and what appeared to be living technology pulsed along the walls. "The human specimens are being kept in Research Sector Gamma, 2 levels down," Telos whispered, consulting a holographic map projected from his wrist device. As they descended, the nature of the facility became increasingly disturbing. Through observation windows, they glimpsed laboratories where Arcturian scientists conducted experiments on various species. Some subjects floated in suspension tanks. Others were connected to machines that seemed to be measuring neural activity. Elena fought to control her mounting anger. This wasn't just research. It was systematic torture disguised as scientific inquiry. Finally, they reached a heavily secured door marked with symbols that Nexus translated as human cognitive development. Elena's scanner showed multiple human biosignatures beyond. "Danny's in there," she said, her heart pounding, along with at least 11 other humans. Nexus extended his appendages toward the security panel, interfacing directly with the alien technology. Impressive encryption, but not impenetrable. After several tense moments, the door slid open. Inside was a large circular chamber with 12 containment pods arranged in a ring. Each pod held a human in suspended animation, some adults, some children. Elena immediately spotted Danny in the third pod, his small face peaceful in artificial sleep. "Start the extraction sequence," she ordered, rushing to her son's pod. "We need to get them all out." As Nexus and Kira began the process of safely deactivating the pods, Elena studied the control panel on Danny's unit. The interface was alien, but she recognized the patterns governing life support and neural monitoring. Carefully, she initiated the revival sequence. Danny's eyelids fluttered, and the suspension fluid drained from his pod. As the transparent barrier retracted, Elena gathered her son in her arms, tears streaming down her face. "Mom?" Danny murmured, confused but alive. "I had weird dreams. It's okay," she whispered, holding him tight. "I'm here now." Their reunion was interrupted by the sudden wail of alarms. Red light flooded the chamber as security protocols activated. "We've been detected," Telos shouted over the noise. "Something triggered their systems." "How many can we transport?" Elena asked urgently, looking at the other humans still in suspension. "All of them, but we need to hurry," Nexus replied, working frantically to accelerate the revival process for the remaining pods. As the other humans began to regain consciousness, Elena heard heavy footsteps approaching, an Arctarian security team responding to the breach. She positioned herself between the door and the recovering prisoners, weapon raised. The door burst open, and 3 Arctarians rushed in, their weapons charged. Elena fired without hesitation, dropping the first one before diving behind a control console for cover. Telos and Kira joined the fight, their resistance training evident in their coordinated defense. Energy blasts crisscrossed the chamber as more Arctarians poured in. "Get the humans to the ship," Elena shouted, providing covering fire. "I'll hold them off." As the firefight intensified, one of the revived humans, a middle-aged man with military bearing, joined Elena behind her cover. "Lieutenant Commander Jack Miller, United Earth Navy," he said, surprisingly composed for someone just awakened from suspension. "Give me a weapon." Elena handed him her spare pistol. "Former military engineer Elena Reed, we're getting everyone out of here." Miller nodded, then leaned out to fire with practiced precision, dropping an Arctarian with each shot. "They've been studying us for years. Military tactics, decision-making under pressure. Didn't expect us to use it against them, though." Together, they provided enough cover for Telos and the others to escort the freed humans toward the exit. Danny was safely with Nexus, who was guiding them back to the hangar bay. As they began their own retreat, Miller grabbed a device from a fallen Arctarian. "Wait, this looks like some kind of data core." Elena glanced at it. "Grab it. Could be valuable." They fought their way back to the hangar, where the remaining humans were already being loaded onto the ship. Energy blasts followed them as they sprinted the final distance, Miller providing covering fire as Elena carried a disoriented child who had awakened during the escape. Once aboard, Elena rushed to the controls, initiating the QDD startup sequence, while the others secured the rescued prisoners. "Displacement drive at 60%, she called out as the hangar doors began to close, and Arctarian reinforcements flooded the bay. "We need more time." Miller examined the device he'd taken. "This might help." He connected it to a port Nexus indicated, and immediately the ship's systems surged with new information. "It's a command override. They use these to control all station functions." "Can we use it to buy time?" Elena asked urgently. Miller's fingers flew over the alien interface. "Better. I can trigger a containment breach in the adjacent sector. It'll force them to deal with that instead of us." The gambit worked. As warning klaxons sounded throughout the station, the Arctarian forces retreated to contain the fabricated emergency. By the time they realized the deception, Elena's ship had disappeared into quantum displacement, carrying all 12 rescued humans to safety. Back at the Resistance base, medical teams rushed to treat the former captives. Danny remained by Elena's side, gradually recovering his full awareness as the effects of long-term suspension wore off. Commander Miller, who turned out to be one of Earth's top military strategists before his abduction, examined the stolen data core with resistance experts. "Ms. Reed," he said, approaching her with an expression of awe, "you need to see this. That device didn't just contain override codes. It has the complete Arcturian security protocols for all 3 star systems. Access codes, defense grid specifications, everything." Elena looked up from where she sat with Danny. "What does that mean?" Miller's eyes gleamed with strategic calculation. "It means we've just been handed the keys to the kingdom." The resistance base buzzed with unprecedented activity. In the central command chamber, Elena stood beside Commander Miller and Telos as they addressed representatives from dozens of subjugated species. The stolen data core, now fully decrypted, by Nexus projected a complex 3-dimensional map of all Arcturian security systems across the 3 star systems. "For the first time," Miller explained to the assembly, "we have complete access to their defense grid. We can see their blind spots, their response protocols, everything. More importantly," Elena added, stepping forward, "we've identified all their research facilities and detention centers. We know where everyone they've taken is being held." A murmur swept through the gathered aliens. Some wept with their species' equivalent of tears. Others vibrated with barely contained rage or hope. Telos raised his hands for quiet. "This is more than an opportunity for rescue missions. This is our chance to end Arcturian dominance completely." Over the next several days, Elena found herself increasingly central to the Resistance's planning. What had begun as a mother's desperate quest to save her child had evolved into something far larger. Her understanding of quantum displacement technology, combined with Miller's strategic brilliance and the Resistance's diverse capabilities, created possibilities never before considered viable. Danny, recovering quickly as children often do, became something of a mascot among the Resistance fighters. His resilience inspired many, and Elena found herself drawing strength from his example. She made sure to spend time with him each day, helping him process his experiences while keeping him safely away from the war planning. "Are we going home soon?" Danny asked one night as she tucked him into bed in their quarters. Elena hesitated. "We will, sweetheart. But first, there are other children like you that need help. Is it okay if we help them too?" Danny considered. "This seriously? Like a rescue mission, like you rescued me?" "Exactly like that." He nodded solemnly. "I think we should help them all, Mom." The operation that followed was unprecedented in scale and ambition. Using Elena's QDD technology, now replicated across multiple Resistance vessels, they launched simultaneous strikes against 27 Arcturian research facilities. Miller coordinated from Central Command, while Elena led one of the key assault teams targeting the Central Administrative Complex in the Yellow Star system. The Arcturians, for all their advanced technology, had never faced an enemy that could simply materialize inside their most secure facilities. Their defenses were designed to repel external attacks, not internal breaches appearing from nowhere. Facility after facility fell as Resistance forces freed thousands of captives from dozens of worlds. Some had been imprisoned for generations, their home planets believing them long dead. Others were recently captured like the humans. All told stories of exploitation, experimentation, and suffering. Elena's team secured the administrative complex with minimal casualties, capturing several high-ranking Arcturian officials. The aliens, so accustomed to being the dominant power, seemed genuinely shocked by the reversal of fortune. As Elena supervised the download of the central database, she found herself face-to-face with the Arcturian research director, a tall, imposing figure whose compound eyes reflected her image. "In fractured patterns, you," the alien said through a translator, its voice surprisingly melodic. "The human engineer, you have done the impossible." "No," Elena replied coldly. "I've done what any mother would do when her child is taken." "Your mistake was thinking, we were just specimens." The director tilted its head in what might have been curiosity. "We have studied thousands of species across 12 sectors of space. Humans are anomalous. Your cognitive leap from theoretical understanding to practical application of quantum physics should have taken centuries, not decades. You don't understand us at all, Elena said. Necessity drives innovation, desperation accelerates it, and love, she paused, thinking of Danny. Love makes the impossible necessary. Within 48 hours, resistance forces had secured key installations across all 3 star systems. Arcturian military vessels, cut off from central command and facing enemies that could appear anywhere at any time, began to surrender rather than be destroyed. When Elena returned to Resistance headquarters, she found herself greeted as a hero. Species that had suffered under Arcturian dominion for centuries looked to her with something approaching reverence. It made her deeply uncomfortable. I didn't do this for glory, she confided to Miller as they watched the celebrations. I just wanted my son back. Miller nodded, understanding. The best leaders often are those who never sought power. The question now is, what happens to these 3 star systems? The Arcturians ruled absolutely. There's no governance structure to replace them. Before Elena could respond, Telos approached with several other resistance leaders. The Coalition Council has reached a unanimous decision, he announced. We need a transitional authority to oversee the liberation process and establish a new interspecies cooperative. Someone who understands both strategy and compassion. Elena realized they were all looking at her. No, she said immediately. I'm an engineer, not a politician. Once we've secured safe passage, Danny and I are going home to Earth. Elena, Telos said gently, you've united species that have been divided for centuries. You understand quantum physics and human determination. Without your leadership, everything we've accomplished could collapse into chaos. What about Miller? He's the military strategist. Miller shook his head. I can handle security, but this needs more than military solutions. It needs someone who reminds everyone what we're fighting for. Elena looked out at the celebration, seeing members of different species interacting in ways that would have been impossible days earlier. She thought of the thousands still being processed from Arcturian captivity, of the power vacuum that could lead to new conflicts. She thought of Danny's words, I think we should help them all, Mom. 3 months, she said finally. I'll help establish the transition government for 3 months. Then Danny and I go home. Telos bowed deeply. The coalition accepts your terms. As word spread of her acceptance, Elena found herself at the center of a new kind of mission. Not a battle for freedom, but the much harder work of building peace. And somewhere deep inside, she suspected that 3 months would not be nearly enough time. The Grand Council chamber had once been the Arcturian High Command's Strategic Planning Center. Now, representatives from 27 formerly subjugated species gathered around the massive circular table where Elena presided over daily governance, meetings. 3 months had stretched to 6, then 12. Danny's 9th birthday had been celebrated here among the stars rather than back on Earth. The Vox delegation requests additional terraforming resources for their reclaimed homeworld, announced the protocol officer, a slender being from a methane-based species. Elena nodded. Approved, consistent with the resource allocation guidelines established last quarter. She had never intended to become what some were now calling the administrator of the 3 systems. But each time she had prepared to return to Earth, new crises had emerged requiring her unique combination of technical knowledge, diplomatic instincts, and moral authority. The Coalition Council had evolved into a functional government with Elena at its center, not as a dictator, but as a mediating force between competing interests and ancient grievances. Final agenda item, the protocol officer continued. The Earth delegation requests an audience. Elena sat straighter. Send them in immediately. Admiral Hayes entered, accompanied by 3 United Earth government officials. In the year since Elena's unplanned departure, Earth had been brought into limited contact with the Coalition through carefully managed communications. This was Hayes's first personal visit. Madam Administrator, Hayes said formally, though his eyes held warmth and amazement as he took in the scene. Earth extends its greetings to the Coalition. Admiral, Elena replied with equal formality, the Coalition welcomes Earth's representatives. After the diplomatic niceties, Elena took Hayes on a private tour of the station, Danny chattering excitedly beside them about his adventures and the alien friends he'd made. "When you stole that prototype," Hayes said when they had a moment alone, "I never imagined all this." He gestured to the bustling administrative center where members of a dozen species worked together. "You've changed the course of human history, Elena. You've integrated humanity into an interstellar community before we even developed our own interstellar travel." "It wasn't my intention," she admitted. "I just wanted your kid back," Hayes finished. "Yes, I remember." He smiled. "But you've done so much more. You've shown the entire sector that humanity isn't just capable of quantum physics. We're capable of leadership that isn't based on domination." Elena led him to the observation deck overlooking the yellow star. Ships of various designs moved through the heavens, many now equipped with variations of her QDD technology freely shared among coalition members. The Arctarians were brilliant scientists, she explained, but terrible neighbors. They viewed every species as experimental subjects rather than equals. Their downfall wasn't technological, it was philosophical. Hayes studied her. "Earth wants you to come home, Elena. The UEG is prepared to establish an official diplomatic presence here, but they want you heading it. You and Danny would be back home but still connected to what you've built here." The offer was tempting. Despite her adaptation to this new role, Elena still dreamed of Earth's blue skies and wide oceans. Danny deserved a chance at a normal childhood among his own kind. Before she could respond, an urgent alert sounded. Nexus appeared at the entrance to the observation deck, all 6 limbs twitching with anxiety. "Administrator, we've detected unusual quantum signatures at the edge of the red star system. Pattern suggests Arctarian, but different." Elena's mind shifted immediately from personal concerns to strategic ones. "Alert Commander Miller. I want all coalition vessels on standby." To Hayes, she added, "The Arctarians were an expansive civilization. We always suspected there might be outlying elements that would eventually respond to the loss of their core systems." Hayes straightened, military training reasserting itself. "How can Earth assist?" "Stay," Elena said simply. "Observe. This may be humanity's first contact with a hostile interstellar force. Your government should know what that looks like." The potential threat materialized 3 days later. A fleet of Arctarian vessels larger than any the coalition had encountered, emerging from quantum displacement at the edge of the system. Their design was more aggressive, their weapon systems more prominent than the research vessels the Resistance had faced previously. The coalition defense fleet under Miller's command mobilized to intercept them. Elena coordinated from Central Command, with Hayes observing in silent amazement at the efficiency of this interspecies military operation. "They're hailing us," Nexus reported. "Audio and visual. On screen," Elena ordered. The image that appeared showed an Arctarian different from those Elena had encountered before, larger, with distinctive markings across its iridescent scales. "Military caste," she realized. "I am War Commander Thrix." "Of the Arctarian Dominion," the alien announced. "You have illegally seized Arctarian research territories and assets. Surrender immediately or face obliteration." Elena stepped forward. "I am Administrator Elena Reed of the 3 Systems Coalition. These systems are no longer Arctarian territory. They are free worlds united in mutual defense and cooperation." "You are the human," Thrix observed. "The one who disrupted the research programs." "I am the mother whose child was abducted," Elena corrected. "And now I speak for billions across these 3 systems who will never be your test subjects again." Thrix's compound eyes flashed with patterns that the translation system interpreted as contempt. "Your primitive species cannot comprehend the importance of our research. The advancements, the evolutionary leaps, achieved through torture and imprisonment," Elena interrupted. "No scientific advancement justifies what you did." "Prepare to be boarded," Thrix declared. "Your coalition will be dismantled." The transmission ended. Elena turned to Miller. "Status of defense grid?" "Ready," he reported. "QDD interdiction fields active. They won't be able to use displacement jumps within the system without our permission." Elena nodded. "Deploy as planned. Remember, Minimal casualties if possible. These may be our opponents today, but they could be our neighbors tomorrow. What followed was the first and only battle of what later histories would call the Liberation War. The Arcturian military forces, for all their advanced weaponry, found themselves outmaneuvered by coalition vessels using modified QDD technology that Elena had helped develop. By selectively controlling where quantum displacement was possible, the coalition forces could appear and disappear at will, while the Arcturian fleet was forced to use conventional propulsion. After 6 hours of fighting with 3 coalition vessels lost but the Arcturian fleet crippled, War Commander Thrix requested terms. In the negotiation that followed, Elena demonstrated the diplomatic skills she'd honed over the past year. She offered neither humiliation nor vengeance, instead proposing integration of the remaining Arcturian territories into the coalition as equals, with full rights and protections. "Your research will continue," she told the astonished war commander, "but with willing participants and ethical oversight. Your technological knowledge is valuable, but it must serve all species, not exploit them." The terms were accepted. As the Arcturian delegation departed, Hayes approached Elena with newfound respect in his eyes. "You could have destroyed them completely," he observed. "After what they did, many would have." Elena watched the Arcturian ships retreat, Danny at her side. "Vengeance isn't governance, and Danny deserves to grow up in a peaceful system." Hayes nodded thoughtfully. "About Earth's offer." Elena looked around at the command center, at Telos coordinating diplomatic channels, at Miller revising defense protocols, at Nexus integrating new safety measures into the QDD network. She looked at Danny, who was now drawing pictures of the Yao battle to share with his alien friends. This had become their home, their community, their responsibility. "Tell Earth I'm staying," she said quietly. "At least until the coalition is stable enough to transition to fully representative governance. But I would welcome a permanent Earth embassy here." Hayes smiled. "I suspected as much. For what it's worth, I think you've found your calling." Elena wasn't so sure about that. But she had found something she never expected when she stole an experimental ship to chase her son across the stars. She had found a way to make a difference on a scale she never imagined possible. "Come on, Danny," she said, taking her son's hand. "Let's go see the new habitation dome. I hear they finally got the gravity calibrated for Earth standard." As they walked, Danny looked up at her. "Mom, are you really the boss of 3 whole star systems now?" Elena laughed. "Not the boss, sweetheart. Just someone trying to help." But as they passed through the corridors, beings of all species stopped to bow or offer gestures of respect. The administrator had spoken. Peace would prevail. 5 years passed. Elena stood on the observation deck of Coalition Central, watching the inaugural ceremony of the 3 Systems Parliament. Representatives from 34 species, including the recently admitted human delegation, filed into the great chamber that had once been the heart of Arcturian power. At 42, Elena's dark hair now showed strands of silver, earned through half a decade of crisis management, diplomatic negotiation, and the constant stress of building something unprecedented, a true interspecies democracy spanning 3 star systems. "Nervous?" asked Miller, who had remained her chief of security throughout the transition. He too showed signs of age, though military posture never left him. "Relieved," Elena corrected. "In 2 hours, I'll be a private citizen again." Today marked the official end of the transitional administration and Elena's role as administrator. The coalition had grown from an emergency alliance into a stable political entity with its own constitution, legal framework, and democratically elected leadership. "Many still wanted you to stand for election," Miller noted. "You would have won easily." Elena shook her head. 5 years was 4 years and 9 months longer than I planned to stay. It's time for elected officials, not emergency administrators. The door slid open, and 14-year-old Danny entered. No longer the confused child rescued from Arcturian captivity, he had grown into a thoughtful teenager with his mother's technical mind and an intuitive understanding of alien cultures that only a child raised among them could develop. The Telnar representative wants to know if you'll accept their gifting ceremony, he reported. I told them you'd probably say no to the living symbionts, but might accept the crystalline memory matrix. Elena smiled. Good call. Tell them I'm honored by any gift, but would prefer the non-biological option. As Danny left to deliver the message, Miller chuckled. That kid's going to be a diplomat someday, or maybe the next administrator. He's going to be whatever he chooses, Elena said firmly. His path is his own. The ceremony itself was magnificent, a blending of traditions from dozens of worlds, with music that crossed biological hearing ranges and symbolism, meaningful across different sensory modalities. When Elena formally transferred power to the newly elected parliament speaker, a former resistance fighter from one of the first worlds the Arctarians had subjugated, there wasn't a dry eye or equivalent sensory organ in the chamber. Administrator, Reed, the speaker said, using her title one final time. The three systems will never forget what began with a mother's love and ended with freedom for billions. How can we honor you? Elena had anticipated this moment and prepared her answer carefully. Establish the Interspecies Scientific Cooperative, she said, a place where knowledge is shared freely and ethically across all our worlds, where research serves life rather than controls it. Not in my name, but in the name of every child, of every species, who deserves to grow up free. The motion passed, unanimously. Later at the reception, Elena found herself approached by the Arctarian ambassador, one of the scientists who had defected during the conflict and helped establish ethical guidelines for their research moving forward. Your departure concerns many of us, the Arctarian said, compound eyes shifting in patterns that Elena had learned to recognize as sincerity. You have been the balance point between competing interests. The balance exists in the system now, Elena replied, not in any one person. That's what we've built together. The ambassador's posture shifted. And your future? Will you return to Earth? It was the question everyone had been asking, but Elena had kept her plans private. Now, with the transition complete, she could finally answer truthfully. Danny and I are taking a research vessel. Earth's government has commissioned us to map the quantum displacement corridors between here and Sol. We'll be establishing the first direct transportation link between Earth and the Coalition. Ah, the Arctarian's voice carried what Elena now recognized as approval. The explorer returns to her roots. The engineer, Elena corrected with a smile. I was always better at building things than running them. Later that night, after the celebrations had ended, Elena and Danny stood in their quarters surrounded by packed containers. Their few personal possessions were modest for people who had effectively governed 3-star systems. Ready for our next adventure? Elena asked her son. Danny nodded excitedly. The quantum mapping mission is going to be amazing. Plus I can finally see Earth. I barely remember it. Elena felt a pang at that. For all that they had accomplished, she sometimes regretted the normal childhood Danny had sacrificed. We'll visit. The oceans first, she promised. And mountains. Real ones, not habitat simulations. As their small research vessel departed the next day, Coalition ships formed an honor guard, lighting up the darkness of space with ceremonial illuminations from dozens of cultures. Elena watched from the command deck, Danny at her side at the navigation console, already a more skilled pilot than many adults. Administrator Reed, came a transmission from Coalition Central. The Parliament sends its eternal gratitude. You will always have a home in the 3 systems. Thank you, Elena replied simply. Take care of each other. As they cleared the formation, Danny engaged the QDD drive that Elena had refined over the years. The familiar sensation of reality folding around them felt, as always, like going home. Mom? Danny asked, as the stars streaked into quantum displacement. Do you ever think about how differently things could have turned out? If the Arctarians hadn't taken me? Elena considered this. Sometimes. But then I might never have built the displacement drive. Humanity might have remained isolated for generations more. The coalition might never have formed. All because you wouldn't give up, Danny said with teenage admiration. Elena smiled and ruffled his hair, something he pretended to hate but secretly still enjoyed. I just wanted my kid back, she said. Everything else was quantum entanglement. As their ship traced new pathways between the stars, Eleanor Reed, engineer, mother, former administrator of 3 star systems, felt content. She had never sought power or glory or even justice. She had simply done what any mother would do when faced with the impossible. She had made it possible. The end.